My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 32 years old. And on October 18th, Lansanling Arshawu, my parents boycotted my wedding. 200 guests filled the ceremony pavilion at Desert Ridge Resort in Scottsdale, Arizona. But the 2 seats in the front row reserved for my mother and father stayed empty the entire time. Everyone noticed. Everyone understood exactly what it meant. 3 months earlier, my father had told me, very calmly, that if I refused to move the wedding date to accommodate my sister's Monaco influencer summit, they wouldn't come. You need to learn humility, he said. And they kept that promise. What they didn't know was that my fiancée Emily had already uncovered something they never expected anyone to see. During the reception, she would reveal it to everyone. The story didn't begin with anger. It began with hope. December 21st. Lansanling Arshasen. Emily proposed to me at Papago Park in Phoenix. Just after sunset, she'd set up a small blanket near the red sandstone buttes, a thermos of hot cider, and a string of battery lights woven through a mesquite tree. Nothing extravagant. Emily never liked flashy gestures. She preferred quiet moments. The kind that felt real instead of staged. When she pulled out the ring, her grandmother's ring, white gold worn smooth by 60 years of marriage, I already knew my answer. Yes, I said before she could even finish the question. For a while we just sat there, watching the sky turn dark purple over the desert. I remember thinking how simple happiness felt in that moment. The next morning I called my parents. My mother cried immediately. I assumed they were happy tears. My father sounded proud, the way he sometimes did when speaking to his business partners. That's great news, Daniel, he said. Your mother and I will help however we can. I didn't know it then, but that sentence would age badly. A week later my mother invited us to lunch at their house in Paradise Valley. The house had been renovated 3 times since I was a kid, white marble floors, 20-foot ceilings, floor-to-ceiling glass looking out over the golf course. My father liked houses that looked expensive the moment someone stepped inside. He owned Carter Ridge Holdings, a luxury real estate investment firm that specialized in high-end developments across Arizona and Nevada. They weren't billionaires, but they were wealthy enough that money was never something they worried about. My mother waited until dessert before bringing it up. There's something your grandparents left for you, she said casually, setting her wine glass down. I frowned. What do you mean? The wedding trust. I blinked. When your grandparents passed in 2019, she continued, they set aside money specifically for the first grandchild who got married. She smiled as if the answer should have been obvious. That's you. My throat tightened slightly. How much? Shisanwan Wutsen Meiyuan. For a moment I didn't say anything. My grandparents had always believed in planning ahead. My grandfather used to say that family wealth only mattered if it helped the next generation build a stable life. Your grandfather wanted it used for a wedding. My father added from across the table, barely looking up from his phone. Or a house afterward. Your choice. The words sounded generous. I thanked them both. For once in my life it felt like my parents actually saw me. I should have known better. By March of 2024, Emily and I had visited 12 wedding venues. Most were either booked for 2 years straight or priced like luxury resorts. Then we walked into Desert Ridge Resort. The ceremony pavilion overlooked a stretch of desert hills glowing gold in the afternoon sun. String lights hung above the wooden beams. The air smelled faintly of sage. I knew immediately. This is the one. I told the coordinator. Her name was Laura Kent. A woman in her 40s with a leather planner and the calm confidence of someone who had organized hundreds of weddings. What date were you thinking? She asked. October 18th. Lansanling Arshawu. She checked her calendar and nodded. Perfect timing. Fall weddings here book quickly. You're lucky. The deposit was $9,000. Non-refundable. Emily and I split it from our savings that afternoon. Contract signed. Date locked. I texted my parents a photo of the pavilion. My mother responded almost immediately. Beautiful venue. October will be perfect weather. We're so excited for you. I saved the message without thinking. Looking back, maybe part of me already sensed something fragile beneath it. My younger sister Vanessa is 3 years younger than me. Growing up, my parents treated her like she was made of sunlight. Vanessa had never held a traditional job. She called herself a luxury lifestyle creator. On Instagram she posted photos of Monaco yachts, Ibiza beaches, and wellness retreats, in places most people couldn't afford to visit once in their lives. She had about 180,000 followers. My parents funded nearly all of it. Apartment, travel, designer clothes. They called it investing in her brand. When we were kids, Vanessa got piano lessons, ballet class, and summer art programs in Santa Fe. I got something else. Daniel, you're responsible. You'll be fine. That sentence followed me most of my life. When I graduated college with an engineering degree, My father nodded once and said, "Good work." When Vanessa gained 10,000 followers from one viral post, my parents hosted a dinner party to celebrate her growing influence. I learned early which of us was the golden child, and which of us was simply dependable. But by the time Emily came into my life, I thought that imbalance didn't matter anymore. I had a career as a civil engineer. I had a woman who believed in me more than anyone else ever had. I had my own life. At least, that's what I believed. Until July of 2025. That was when Vanessa posted an Instagram story that made everything start to unravel. A video of her jumping onto a hotel bed, laughing like she'd just won the lottery. The caption read, "Just confirmed. Monaco Influencer Summit. The opportunity of a lifetime." At first I barely paid attention. Vanessa was always traveling somewhere. But 3 weeks later my mother sent me a message that changed everything. "Daniel, call me about the wedding date." I called my mother from the parking lot outside my office. July in Phoenix meant the heat rose off the pavement in waves that made the air shimmer. I leaned against my truck and held the phone to my ear. "Hey, Mom. What's going on?" Her voice sounded tight. "It's about your wedding date." My stomach dropped a little. "What about it?" "Well, Vanessa booked something important." I already didn't like where this was going. "What kind of something?" "A professional opportunity," she said quickly. "A networking retreat in Monaco. Influencers. Luxury brands. International partnerships. It's a huge step for her career." I waited. "It overlaps with your wedding." Silence hung between us for a moment. "When exactly?" I asked. "October 14th through the 25th. My jaw tightened. "My wedding is October 18th. "I know. Honey." I stared across the parking lot at the empty desert hills. "So what are you asking?" Another pause. "Would you consider moving the wedding?" The words landed slowly, like something heavy dropping into water. "Move it where?" "Maybe spring of next year. Or even early summer. Weddings happen all the time." "Daniel." I let out a short breath. "We booked the venue 18 months ago. The deposit's non-refundable. Save the dates already went out to 200 guests." "I understand that," she said. But her tone didn't sound like she did. "But Vanessa already paid for the retreat." "How much?" "About 20,000. I actually laughed once. Quietly. "So you want us to move our entire wedding because Vanessa booked a vacation?" "It's not a vacation," my mother snapped. "It's business." Emily and I had spent 5 years saving for the wedding. Every extra shift. Every small vacation we skipped. Every bonus I tucked away. The total budget came out to just under $58. Ling ling ling. Every dollar mattered. "No," I said calmly. "We're not changing the date." My mother went quiet. "Daniel," she said slowly. "This is about family. So is my wedding. But Vanessa's career is finally taking off. My wedding happens once. Your wedding can happen anytime." That sentence stayed in the air for a long moment. "We already signed contracts," I said. "The venue. Catering. Photography. If we move the date, we lose tens of thousands of dollars." My mother sighed. "I'll talk to your father." The line went dead. I stood there for another minute staring at the phone before going back inside. That night I told Emily what had happened. She listened without interrupting. "Do you want to move the date?" she asked finally. "Then we don't move it." Simple. Clear. One of the reasons I loved her. 2 days later my father called. His voice carried the tone he used when negotiating real estate deals. Direct. Controlled. Impatient. "Daniel. I spoke with your mother. I figured. You're being unreasonable." I leaned back in my chair. "Vanessa has an opportunity that could expand her brand internationally. You're refusing to support your sister." "I'm getting married. That can happen anytime." I almost repeated the contracts again. But something told me it wouldn't matter. "This wedding has been scheduled for over a year," I said. "You're choosing a date over your sister's future." I rubbed the bridge of my nose. "I'm choosing not to destroy 5 years of planning." My father exhaled sharply. "You're acting selfish." The word landed harder than I expected. Selfish. I had spent most of my life being the opposite of that. Helping. Compromising. Staying quiet. But not this time. "The date stays," I said. Silence. Then his voice turned colder. "Then we have a problem." The call ended. I sat there for a while, looking at the blank phone screen. Emily came into the kitchen and leaned against the counter. "That bad?" she asked. "Dad called me selfish." She crossed the room and wrapped her arms around me. "You're not selfish," she said. "You're setting a boundary." I nodded. Though part of me still felt that familiar pressure, the old instinct to fix things. To make everyone happy. That night I barely slept. Not because I doubted our decision, but because I knew my parents well enough to understand something else. They weren't used to losing. And they weren't used to me saying no. The real confrontation came a week later. My parents requested a meeting at their house. Emily came with me. Vanessa, joined by speakerphone from Los Angeles, where she was apparently staying with friends. My mother sat at the dining table with her hands folded. My father stood by the window, arms crossed. We've thought about this carefully. My mother said. We have a compromise. I already knew I wasn't going to like it. You move the wedding to May 2026. She said. We'll help cover the rescheduling fees. Emily glanced at me. How much do you think those fees are? I asked. My father shrugged. 10,000 maybe. More like 15. I said. And we'd lose our venue date. Vanessa's voice crackled through the speaker. I mean, I already paid the deposit for Monaco. Something inside me went quiet. Not angry. Just done. No. I said. The room fell silent. The date stays. My father turned from the window. His expression hardened. Then we have a serious problem. The meeting ended 10 minutes later. As Emily and I walked to the car, my mother stood in the doorway crying. My father didn't come outside. The next morning at 6. I received a text from him. Since you've chosen this path, don't expect our financial support. The $135,000 trust fund will not be released. This wedding no longer represents family. I read it twice. Then I handed the phone to Emily. And that was the moment the situation stopped being about a wedding date. For the next 47 days, my parents disappeared from my life. No calls. No messages. No replies. The silence felt deliberate. I called my mother 6 times during the first week. Every call went to voicemail. I left 2 messages before I stopped trying. I called my father 4 times. Straight to voicemail every time. The messages showed as read. They simply chose not to answer. Emily told me to stop chasing them. They're trying to make you fold. She said one night while we sat on the couch. This is pressure. She was right. But knowing that didn't make it easier. For 32 years, my parents had controlled every major decision in our family. Their approval was currency. Their disapproval felt like punishment. Now they were using silence the same way. Meanwhile, Vanessa posted almost daily. Monaco outfit hauls. Luxury hotel previews. Travel countdowns. My parents liked every single post. They commented too. So proud of you. You deserve this. Our superstar. When Emily pointed that out, I stopped looking at social media altogether. 2 weeks passed. Then 3. On August 12th I sent my mother a simple text. Mom, can we talk? It showed as read 15 minutes later. No response. On August 24th I tried again. I'd really like you both at the wedding. Delivered. Never opened. Emily watched me go through the cycle: hope, frustration, silence. One night she placed my phone face down on the kitchen counter. Daniel, she said quietly. You can't keep waiting for people who only talk when you give them what they want. She was right. Still, the situation changed suddenly on September 8th. My phone rang while I was reviewing construction drawings at work. My mother. For a moment I just stared at the screen before answering. Hello. Static crackled through the line. Then her voice. We'll attend the wedding. Relief hit me so quickly it almost made me dizzy. Good. I said. That's all I wanted. But don't misunderstand. Her tone had turned cold. Your father and I are only coming because family should show up. That doesn't mean we support your decision. I leaned back in my chair. We won't participate in photographs unless you apologize to Vanessa. A pause. And we're not contributing financially. I know. Another pause. Then she delivered the line that sounded exactly like my father. This is to teach you humility. Humility. The same word my father had used during our argument. The same word they kept repeating like a lesson. I could feel the anger rising. But I kept my voice even. Understood. She hung up. I sat there staring at the phone. Not surprised. Just empty. That night, Emily and I ate dinner quietly. Finally, she looked up from her plate. What did she say? They're coming. I said. But they're not happy about it. Emily nodded slowly. That's their choice. She watched me for a moment. What are you thinking? I considered the question. I think they expected me to give in. And now? I shrugged. Now they're trying to make sure I feel punished anyway. Emily reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You're not the one who should feel ashamed. 8 days before the wedding something else happened. October 10th. Landing Archewell. I received an email from Laura Kent, the venue coordinator at Desert Ridge Resort. The subject line read, urgent, conflicting instructions regarding your event. I opened the message immediately. Laura sounded concerned. Hi Daniel. I wanted to reach out because I've received several emails regarding your October 18th wedding that appear to conflict with your current contract. Before making any changes, I wanted to confirm directly with you. Please see the attached emails. 3 attachments. All from my mother. The first email was dated September 3rd. We need to discuss moving the October 18th event to 2026. The second email came 12 days later. This is a family matter. The bride and groom are making a mistake. Please help us adjust the date. The third email was sent October 2nd, 16 days before the wedding. This wedding should not proceed on this date. I'm asking you as the groom's mother to help stop this mistake. I stared at the screen for a long time. She had tried to cancel the wedding behind our backs. 3 separate times. My hands felt strangely steady as I forwarded the email chain to Emily. She called me less than 10 seconds later. Daniel, she said quietly. We need to talk tonight. Her voice sounded different. Focused. Controlled. I've been working on something. She added. What kind of something? A pause. Something bigger than the wedding date. Emily was already home when I walked through the door that night. Her laptop sat open on the kitchen table. Several folders were spread across the screen, along with printed pages she had arranged into neat stacks. She looked up when I stepped inside. You saw the emails? She said. I set my keys down and pulled out a chair. So what's going on? Emily took a breath. I need you to trust me for a second. Good. She said. Because I've spent the last 3 weeks looking into your family's finances. I blinked. What? Emily worked as a financial compliance analyst for a regional investment firm. Her job revolved around investigating irregular transactions, things that didn't quite add up. Apparently she had applied those same skills to my parents. After your dad said they wouldn't release the trust fund. She explained. Something about it didn't sit right with me. She turned the laptop toward me. Rows of bank statements filled the screen. Highlighted entries. Dates. Transaction IDs. In January of this year. She said. Pointing to one line. The trust account held exactly $135,000. The full amount your grandparents left. I nodded slowly. That's what they told me. Right. She scrolled down. Now look at this. A transaction dated July 18th. Lansenling Arshawu. Transfer amount. Joanne Mayuan. Recipient. Vanessa Carter. Memo line. Advance wedding distribution. For a moment I didn't understand what I was seeing. Wait. I said quietly. That's not possible. Emily didn't respond immediately. Instead she opened another document. The trust paperwork. A scanned copy of my grandparents' estate plan from 2019. The relevant paragraph was highlighted. Wedding fund of $135,000 to be distributed to the first grandchild upon marriage. To be used for wedding expenses. First home purchase. Or marital establishment as the beneficiary sees fit. Emily tapped the screen. That beneficiary is you. I leaned back in the chair. But my parents control the trust. I said. They're trustees. Emily corrected. Which means they have a legal responsibility to act in your best interest. She pointed to the transaction again. Giving $90,000 to someone who isn't the beneficiary is a violation of that duty. My mind started working through the timeline. July 18th. 5 days before the meeting at my parents' house. 5 days before they demanded I move the wedding. They already moved the money. I said slowly. Emily nodded. Before they ever asked you to change the date. For a moment the kitchen felt completely silent. The anger I expected didn't come. Instead something colder settled in. Clarity. They never planned to give it to me. I said. Emily didn't answer. She didn't need to. She opened another folder. Screenshots appeared on the screen. Vanessa's Instagram posts. Luxury hotel bookings. First-class flight tickets. One post dated July 20th, 2 days after the transfer. The caption read, treating myself because I deserve it. Emily leaned back slightly. I also looked at the account activity after your mom called to say they would attend the wedding. Another bank record appeared. September 10th. Lansenling Arshawu. Transfer amount. Yuan Xichen Lambai Meiyuan. Source. Richard Carter, personal account. Monaco extension package plus excursions. I let out a slow breath. So after telling me they had no money, they paid for Vanessa to extend her trip. Emily finished. For a few seconds neither of us spoke. Then she closed the laptop halfway. There's more. I looked up. What kind of more? She opened another file. The screen filled with documents. Email screenshots. Text message. Venue correspondence. Same sabotage emails my mother had sent to Laura. I've been saving everything. Emily said. How long? Since the day your father called you selfish. I studied the stack of printed documents on the table. Bank transfers. Trust records. Email threads. Screenshots. It wasn't just evidence. It was a complete story. What are you thinking? I asked. Emily met my eyes. We show people the truth. At the wedding. I considered it for a moment. 200 guests. My parents' friends. Business partners. Family members. Everyone watching. They humiliated you. Emily said quietly. They tried to cancel your wedding behind your back. And they stole money that belonged to you. Her voice stayed calm. But there was steel underneath it. They expect you to stay quiet. I looked down at the trust document again. My grandfather's signature sat at the bottom of the page. He had trusted them to do the right thing. What would it look like? I asked. Emily reached for the laptop again. A PowerPoint presentation opened on the screen. 22 slides. The title slide was black with white text. The cost of humility. I stared at it. You've already built the presentation. Emily nodded. Every document. Every transfer. Every email. I exhaled slowly. This will destroy them. She didn't argue. They destroyed your wedding first. The room fell quiet again. Finally, I looked back at the screen. Okay. I said. Let's finish it. Once the decision was made, everything became methodical. No emotion. No hesitation. Just preparation. Over the next 7 days, Emily and I built the case piece by piece. Every document was verified twice. Bank statements showing the $90,000 transfer to Vanessa. The trust agreement from my grandparents' estate. My mother's emails attempting to cancel the venue. Text messages from my father telling me I'd get nothing. Screenshots of Vanessa's posts celebrating luxury travel while claiming the trip was a career opportunity. Emily organized everything into chronological order. Evidence worked better when the story unfolded clearly. Slide by slide. The PowerPoint presentation grew into something bigger than either of us expected. 22 slides. Each one clean. Simple. Direct. The title slide stayed the same. The cost of humility. After that came the timeline. My grandparents' wedding photo from 1957. The trust documents. Highlighted sections explaining the inheritance. Then the bank transfer. $90,000 moved from the trust account to Vanessa. Followed by the Instagram screenshots posted days later. Private jet lounges. 5-star resorts. Captions about earning the life you deserve. Next came the second transfer. $17,200 from my father's personal account. The extension package for Monaco. The timing was what made it brutal. 3 days after my mother called to say they would attend the wedding but not happily. 3 days after claiming they had no money for the trust. Emily added the venue emails after that. My mother asking the coordinator to cancel the wedding. 3 attempts. 3 separate dates. Each message written like she was trying to protect me from a mistake. The final slides were the simplest. My father's text message. Since you've chosen this path, don't expect financial support. Then a breakdown of the wedding expenses. Every dollar Emily and I had saved over 5 years. The numbers told the story better than any speech. When we finished, the presentation looked less like revenge and more like evidence for a courtroom. That was intentional. If people doubted our claims, the documents would answer for us. The night before the wedding, Emily sat at the kitchen table, reviewing everything one last time. I leaned against the counter watching her work. You're quiet, she said. I'm thinking about backing out. I considered the question. It would be easy. Get married. Ignore everything. Pretend the last 3 months never happened. But I knew that wasn't really an option. They tried to cancel the wedding. I said. 3 times. Emily nodded. And they stole money your grandparents left for you. I looked down at the trust document lying on the table. My grandfather's handwriting still visible in the margin notes. He had believed family meant something. They used that money to punish me. I said. Emily closed the laptop. Then tomorrow people learn the truth. We didn't speak for a while after that. Finally she looked up again. Last chance. She said quietly. We can walk away from this. I thought about the empty chairs that would probably sit in the front row. I thought about the word my father kept repeating. Humility. You know what humility actually means? I asked. Emily tilted her head slightly. What? Being honest about what people really are. She studied me for a moment. Then she nodded. All right. At 11 that night, Emily called me into the living room. There's one more thing, she said. Her laptop was open again. Another bank record sat on the screen. September 10th. L'Enseigning Archevaux. 3 days after my mother called to say they would attend the wedding. Transfer amount. Yuan Sitzen by Meiyuan. Monaco luxury excursion package. Source account. My father's personal account. I stared at the screen. They paid for her extension. I said quietly. Emily nodded. After telling me they had no money. After saying the trust fund wouldn't be released. After claiming this whole situation was about family. They funded the trip with your inheritance. Emily said. I leaned back on the couch. A short laugh escaped before I could stop it. Not amused. Just finished. Tomorrow. Emily said. Everyone finds out. And for the first time since this whole situation started. I actually slept. October 18th. L'Enseigning Archevaux. I woke up at 6. In the groom's suite at Desert Ridge Resort. For a few seconds I just lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the air conditioning. The day had finally arrived. My phone sat on the nightstand. No messages from my parents. I didn't expect any. The wedding party was already moving through the schedule. Groomsmen arriving. Suits pressed. Photographers everywhere. My best man, Tyler, tried to keep the mood light with terrible jokes and too much coffee. But I couldn't stop watching the clock. Because somewhere between the ceremony and the reception, the entire story would change. I stood near the ceremony pavilion overlooking the desert hills. Rows of white chairs stretched across the stone terrace. 200 seats had been arranged. 2 of them sat empty in the front row, reserved for my parents. Guests had begun filling most of the seats. I counted quickly. About 175 people had arrived. Whispers moved through the crowd. Everyone had already heard some version of the family drama. Weddings make gossip travel faster. Emily arrived shortly after 4. She walked down the aisle beside her uncle, who had agreed to stand in for her father after everything that had happened. When she reached the altar, she looked at me and smiled. A calm smile. The kind that told me she was ready. Pastor Daniel cleared his throat. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. The ceremony began. The wind moved softly through the pavilion, rustling the desert brush beyond the railing. Everything looked exactly like we had imagined when we booked the venue 18 months earlier. Except for the front row. 2 empty chairs. When the pastor reached the traditional moment in the ceremony, he said the words everyone expects. If anyone has reason to object to this union. For a moment nothing happened. Then movement came from the back row. My father stood up. A ripple moved through the crowd. Gasps. Murmurs. Pastor Daniel looked confused. Sir. This isn't. My father's voice cut across the entire pavilion. Daniel. The word echoed off the stone columns. Your mother and I are leaving. He placed his hand on my mother's back as she stood beside him. You need to think about what you've done to this family. A few people in the crowd whispered in shock. My father didn't look at them. He looked directly at me. We will not be part of this mistake. My mother began crying loudly, her voice carrying across the entire ceremony space. They turned and walked down the aisle together. The sound of her heels echoed across the stone. 175 people sat frozen. No one moved. No one spoke. The silence stretched long enough that it almost felt unreal. Then Emily squeezed my hand. Her grip was steady. Keep going, she whispered. Pastor Daniel cleared his throat again. Shall we continue? I nodded once. The ceremony resumed. Our vows were simple. No long speeches. Just promises. Emily looked straight into my eyes as she spoke. I promise to stand beside you, she said. Especially when standing beside you isn't easy. When it was my turn I kept my voice steady. I promise the same. We exchanged rings. The pastor smiled. I now pronounce you husband and wife. We kissed. Applause broke through the tension. Some people were clapping harder than others. But the sound grew until it filled the entire pavilion. Emily and I walked back down the aisle together. The empty chairs remained behind us. Cocktail hour passed quickly. Guests gathered on the terrace overlooking the sunset. Wine glasses clinked. Conversations stayed quiet at first. Everyone wanted to ask about what had just happened. Most people were too polite to do it directly. I repeated the same line whenever someone approached. They made their choice. Emily stayed calm. But I noticed she checked the time more than once. Dinner started at 7. The ballroom transformation looked incredible. String lights stretched across the ceiling. 20 round tables filled the room. The projection screen near the DJ booth waited quietly for the slideshow we had originally planned. Table 3 remained half empty. The name cards for Richard Carter and Susan Carter still sat untouched. I stood up from our table. Restroom, I told Emily. Instead I walked straight to the DJ booth. My laptop connected to the projector within seconds. The PowerPoint file loaded. 22 slides. Everything ready. When I returned to our table, Emily squeezed my hand. Last chance, she said quietly. I looked around the room. Friends. Family. Business associates. People who had watched my parents walk out of my wedding ceremony. Let's do it, I said. The toasts began. Tyler went first. Stories from college. Enough humor to break some of the tension in the room. Then Emily's sister spoke. A heartfelt speech that made half the room cry. Finally, the DJ picked up the microphone. And now, he said. A few words from the groom. I stood up. 165 people turned toward me. I took the microphone. Thank you all for being here tonight, I said. A few nervous laughs spread through the room. Especially those of you who stayed after the ceremony interruption earlier. I pressed the remote in my hand. The screen behind me lit up. Black background. White letters. The cost of humility. People leaned forward in their chairs. My father told me I needed to learn humility. I continued calmly. Tonight, I want to show you what that lesson actually cost. Click. Slide 2 appeared. A black and white photograph from 1957. My grandparents on their wedding day. I said. They believed family meant taking care of the next generation. Slide 3. The trust document. Highlighted paragraph. After they passed away in 2019. They left a wedding trust worth $135,000 for their first grandchild to marry. Click. I paused. That grandchild is me. The room stayed silent. Click. Slide 7 appeared. A bank statement. Transfer date. July 18th. Lansending Arshawu. Amount. Joanne Mayuan. Recipient. Vanessa Carter. Gasp spread across the room. That money, I said calmly, was transferred to my sister 2 months before this wedding. I clicked again. Instagram screenshots appeared. Luxury resorts. First-class flights. Captions about earning the life you deserve. That trip, I continued, is the same trip my parents asked me to move my wedding for. Slide 12. Another bank record. UNC Chenlam by Mayuan. Monaco extension package. 3 days after telling me they had no money for the trust. I said. My father paid to extend the vacation. People at several tables began whispering loudly now. Aunt Carol covered her mouth. My Uncle Mark shook his head slowly. Click. Next slide. Emails from my mother to the venue coordinator. Each one asking to cancel the wedding. 3 separate attempts. The room erupted into shocked murmurs. Click. Final slide. A freeze frame from the ceremony video. My father standing in the aisle. We're leaving. The audio played across the speakers. The silence afterward felt heavy. I lowered the microphone slightly. My parents said today would teach me humility. I said. I looked around the room. But all it really taught me, I gestured toward the screen, was who my family actually is. I set the microphone down. For 5 seconds no one moved. Then my Uncle Mark stood up. He started clapping. Slow at first. Then louder. Another table joined. Then, another. Within seconds the entire ballroom stood. 165 people applauding. Not politely. Loudly. The ovation lasted almost a full minute. Emily squeezed my hand as the applause continued. And for the first time all day, the empty chairs at table 3 didn't matter anymore. The standing ovation lasted nearly a full minute. Not polite applause. Real applause. The kind that fills a room and makes people look at each other like they just witnessed something they'll talk about for years. When it finally ended, the ballroom erupted into noise. Conversations exploded across every table. Some people looked stunned. Some looked angry. A few looked like they were trying to process what they had just seen. About 15 people quietly grabbed their coats and left. Most of them were distant relatives from my father's side. Along with 2 of his business partners who clearly didn't want to be part of the fallout. I didn't stop them. My Uncle Mark walked over first. He shook my hand once. Firmly. Your grandfather would have been proud of you, he said. Then he leaned closer and added quietly. Your father just destroyed himself tonight. Across the room my Aunt Carol was crying while talking to Emily. I swear I didn't know. She kept repeating. I had no idea they did that. Emily hugged her. It's okay, she said gently. It's not your responsibility. Near the windows I saw my cousin David pacing with his phone pressed to his ear. His voice carried across the room. What the hell were you thinking, he shouted. He was almost certainly talking to my father. My own phone was sitting on the table beside my plate. It had been on silent the entire evening. The screen kept lighting up. Text notifications stacked one after another. When I finally picked it up, the counter showed 37 unread messages. Emily's phone had almost as many. She glanced at the screen once. Then turned it face down. Not tonight, she said. Tonight we finish the wedding. The DJ hesitated for a moment before stepping back to the microphone. Well? Let's keep celebrating. A few seconds later Uptown Funk blasted through the speakers. The tension in the room cracked. People started laughing again. Someone pulled Emily onto the dance floor. Within minutes the entire ballroom was moving. If anything, the party became louder than it had been earlier. Relief does that to people. It releases something. Around 9. Tyler grabbed the microphone again. Quick second toast, he said. The room quieted. To Daniel, he said, pointing at me, for having the guts to stand up to a bad situation. Then he raised his glass toward Emily. And to Emily for doing the homework that made it possible. Laughter rippled through the room. And finally, he added with a grin, to the most legendary wedding speech any of us will ever witness. Everyone cheered. The rest of the night passed almost normally. Dancing. Music. Too many drinks. For the first time since the ceremony, The wedding actually felt like a celebration. Bayat and Ashtya. The last guests began leaving. My Aunt Carol hugged me one more time before heading out. "I'm sorry about your parents," she said quietly. I shrugged slightly. They made their choices. After midnight, Emily and I finally returned to the suite upstairs. My jacket hit the chair. My tie followed. Emily kicked off her heels and sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time all day, the room was completely quiet. Then my phone buzzed again. I turned it back on fully. 4 voicemails waited. One was from Uncle Mark. "Call me tomorrow." His message said, "We need to talk about next steps." The other 3 were from unknown numbers. I played the third one. A woman's voice spoke quickly. "Hello. This is Amanda Chen with Channel 12 News. We received a tip about an incident at a wedding tonight involving Richard Carter of Carter Ridge Holdings. We'd like to confirm the situation and request a comment." Emily looked at me. "Well," she said softly. That didn't take long. I leaned back against the headboard. "Someone must have recorded the presentation. Or the ceremony," she said. Neither of us seemed surprised. The story was too big to stay inside one ballroom. The next morning confirmed it. I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating non-stop on the nightstand. When I opened it, the first thing I saw was a Facebook post from Tyler. He had uploaded a short clip of the speech. The caption read, "Best wedding toast in history." By noon the post had been shared more than 2,000 times. The comments were brutal. "Sue them. That's illegal. Boycott Carter Ridge." Someone had even started a hashtag, "Justice for Daniel." Emily read over my shoulder. "Your parents' PR team is probably having a nightmare right now." My phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered. "Daniel Carter. This is Samuel Ortiz. I'm a trust litigation attorney. I saw the documents you presented last night." He paused. "You have a very strong case." I sat up straighter. "For what?" "Breach of fiduciary duty," he said calmly. "They illegally distributed trust assets that belong to you." Emily looked at me carefully. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means," the lawyer said, "your parents may owe you a lot more than an apology." And just like that, the situation stopped being a family dispute. It became a legal one. 3 days after the wedding, Emily and I met Samuel Ortiz at his office in downtown Phoenix. The building overlooked the city skyline through tall glass windows. Samuel had practiced estate and trust law for more than 20 years. Calm voice. Precise questions. The kind of lawyer who didn't waste time. He reviewed every document we had collected. The trust agreement. The bank transfers. The emails. The screenshots. 90 minutes passed before he finally leaned back in his chair. "You have an airtight case," he said. "For what exactly?" I asked. "Breach of fiduciary duty." He folded his hands on the desk. "As trustees of the fund, your parents had a legal obligation to act in your best interest. Transferring $90,000 to someone who isn't the beneficiary is a direct violation." He turned a legal pad toward us and wrote a few numbers. "Here's the likely outcome, if we pursue this. Original trust value. Shisenwan Wutsen Meyen. Punitive damages estimate. Luwen Meyen. Legal costs recovery. Yuan Wutsen Meyen. Estimated settlement. Arshi Yuan Meyen." I stared at the number for a moment. "How long would it take?" "If they settle quickly," he said. 2 to 3 weeks. "And if they fight?" 6 months. He paused before adding one more sentence. "But they won't fight." "Why not?" He gave a small smile. "Because the publicity alone will cost them far more than $200,000. 2 days later he filed the lawsuit in Maricopa County. The paperwork was delivered to my parents that Friday afternoon. I didn't hear from them directly. Instead, my Uncle Mark called that evening. "Your father is furious," he said. "He says you're destroying the family name." "What family name?" I asked quietly. "The one he already destroyed when he walked out of your wedding." Mark chuckled softly. I told him the same thing. The real pressure started over the weekend. Online reviews appeared on every business listing connected to Carter Ridge Holdings. Dozens of 1-star ratings. People quoting lines from the wedding presentation. One comment read, "If he steals from his own son, why trust him with real estate investments?" By Monday morning the local news picked up the story. A short segment aired on Channel 12. The headline read, "Local developer, sued by son, over wedding trust fund." Sales inquiries for their properties reportedly dropped almost 30% that week. On October 29, Samuel called again. "They want mediation," he said. That was fast. Reputation damage moves faster than lawsuits. The mediation took place in a neutral office building the following Wednesday. Emily and I sat in one conference room. My parents sat in another. We never saw them. The mediator walked back and forth between the 2 rooms for nearly 4 hours. Finally, he returned with the offer. "Your parents are willing to settle for the full amount," he said. $210,000. Samuel looked at me. I thought about it for a moment. One more condition, I said. The mediator raised an eyebrow. A written apology acknowledging what they did. 30 minutes later he returned. They agree. 5 days after that, the wire transfer hit our account. Arsha Yuan Meiyuan. Emily and I used part of it for the down payment on a house in Mesa the following spring. 3 bedrooms. A small backyard. Nothing flashy. Just ours. Around the same time, we learned Emily was pregnant. We painted the nursery together on a quiet Saturday afternoon. Soft yellow walls. A white crib in the corner. While we worked, Emily asked a simple question. What should we leave our child someday? I thought about my grandparents. The trust they had created with good intentions. And how easily it had been turned into a weapon. Something simple. I said. What? A reminder that money should help people build their lives. Emily smiled. I like that. We haven't spoken to my parents since the mediation. Vanessa lost nearly half of her online followers after the story spread. Several brands quietly stopped working with her. Sometimes my uncle tells me my father asks about the baby. Maybe one day we'll talk again. Maybe we won't. But I learned something that day when 2 chairs sat empty in the front row of my wedding. Some families are defined by blood. Others are defined by loyalty. The second kind tends to last longer. If your family ever tries to use money, guilt, or the word humility to control you, document everything. Know your rights. And remember something important. The family you build will always matter more than the one you were born into. Disclaimer is approximately equal to 6S voiceover. This story is shared for storytelling and discussion purposes. Names, details, and circumstances may be dramatized for narrative clarity.